The words that changed my family were only 7, and I said them with a smile that tasted like steel. Then the 7,000 mortgage ends now. If you've ever felt a room tilt without moving, you know the silence that followed wrapping paper frozen mid-air, cinnamon and pine turning to ash, a laugh dying in a throat. I was 67, widowed, and foolish enough to think love could be measured in patience. That Christmas morning at 9:10 a.m., I learned it could also be measured in receipts. By 8:30 a.m., Ashley's famous cinnamon rolls had glazed the kitchen in a sugary halo, the 4-bedroom colonial humming with the careful abundance she curated for the world to admire. Emma and Tyler, 12 and 10, had detonated their gifts by 9 a.m., and the living room glowed with the smug satisfaction of a perfect holiday photo. I waited, because mothers learn to time their needs like weather forecasts mention showers only after the picnic ends. "Honey," I said to my son, keeping my voice gentle, "I hate to bring this up on Christmas, but I could use help with a new prescription. It's $100 a month. The way the room stilled, you'd think I'd asked for a lung." Ashley didn't look up right away. She lifted her eyes like I was a notification she could swipe away and said, "Are you serious right now? Margaret?" When I explained, she cut across my words so cleanly I felt the slice. "You contribute nothing but costs to this family." Kevin laughed an easy, agreeable laugh that once meant he was trying to keep the peace. This time it meant he'd already chosen a side. Somewhere inside, something brittle and long-suffering cracked, and cool. Clear water rushed in. "You're absolutely right," I said, tasting calm like a new language. "I do contribute nothing but costs. So let's fix that. The $7,000 monthly mortgage I've been paying for this house ends today." Kevin coughed, choked, blinked. Ashley's face moved like a storm map, smug to puzzled to pale within 3 seconds. "Mortgage," she whispered, turning to him. "You told me the house was paid off." He opened and closed his mouth without sound, the way a man drowns on dry land. "It's been 2 years," I continued, "because once the truth starts, it refuses to be quiet. I made the payments, kept the lights on, kept the yard respectable, even handled the utilities when your account bounced at 6 p.m. last May." Ashley stood up so slowly the tree lights seemed to dim. "You said you had an inheritance," she told Kevin, voice thinning to wire. "You said your mother died when you were young, that Maggie was your stepmother." I laughed the kind of laugh that arrives after 18 hours of labor and 3 decades of excuses. "I gave birth to Kevin at 3:06 a.m. on a Wednesday," I said, "and I have the stretch marks and the stories to prove it." Kevin murmured, "Mom, please." But the word please was a tourist in his mouth. Ashley turned back to him, sharper now. "So where did the down payment come from?" I spared him the dignity he hadn't offered me. $80,000 from my late husband's life insurance, I said softly. "A gift. When you decided the apartment felt small." Her gaze flicked across the room, recalibrating every story she'd been sold. "And the Disney trips. Me," I said. "The piano lessons, the baseball gear, the landscaping service me." Kevin's shoulders drooped like a sail gone slack. So how much, Ashley asked, not to me, but to the ledger of her life. Kevin tried to swallow the number and failed. "About $12,000 a month," he mumbled. She did the math without blinking. "That's $144,000 a year," she said, "more than both our salaries." I stood, smoothing a dress I'd bought on a senior discount day, and lifted my keys from the entry dish I'd purchased when their first one cracked. "Well," I said, "kindness and clarity braided at last. You won't have to worry about my costs anymore. Kevin found anger in the ruins. You can't just stop. The payment is due next week. Then you'll learn what 7,000 looks like when it isn't invisible." I replied, Perhaps your company can offer one of those bonuses you've told Ashley about." I reached the door at 9:25 a.m. and paused. The house behind me no longer mine to protect. "Next time you tell stories about your family," I said without turning, "remember who taught you better." I drove home through streets that still believed in peace on earth, stopped for coffee and a Christmas cookie at 9:40 a.m., and felt lighter than I had in years. But when I climbed my steps at 10:15 a.m., a thick manila envelope waited on my porch with my name in Ashley's careful handwriting. Inside, the truth had teeth, and I would soon learn how sharp. The envelope smelled faintly of Ashley's perfume citrus, with something cold beneath it before the paper even scraped my fingertips. Inside, under the halo of my 10:20 a.m. lamp, I found the map of a life I'd been financing without permission credit card statements stacked like accusations, $67,000 in balances blooming with late fees, a second mortgage I'd never heard of, dated 6 months earlier, my son's pen looping through a stranger's version of responsibility, a paltry $847 across 2 checking accounts that should have been fat with 2 steady salaries, and then the page that made my scalp prickle the life insurance policy on me, $500,000. Kevin listed as sole beneficiary, purchased 18 months ago, right after the dizzy spells that sent me to the emergency room at 7:30 p.m., on a Tuesday. I now remember for the fluorescent hum more than the fear. I said out loud to my empty living room, "Oh, Kevin," and my voice sounded like a woman who had finally found the bottom. The phone rang at 10:28 a.m., Ashley skipping pleasantries the way a diver skips stairs. "Did you get the envelope I did?" I said, shuffling the pages until the policy's black type glared up at me like a dare. "Where did you find all this?" "In his desk at work," she replied, breath choppy. I demanded his supervisor open it. "Maggie, he's been forging my signature. If you see my name on anything I didn't sign it." I pressed a palm to my chest as if I could hold my ribs still. "Some of these show you co-signing." "I didn't," she said, panic sharpening to anger. "Not the second mortgage, not the cards, not the policy on you. Maggie, I think he's been planning something." The word planning slid between us like a knife laid carefully on a table. What kind of something, I asked, though the policy already answered? After the call, I sat with the papers until 11 a.m., the tree lights blinking like a heartbeat that refused to settle. My phone buzzed. "Mom, we need to talk. Coming over now." For a moment, I almost texted, "Don't," the way you almost grab a pot barehanded because you've forgotten it burns. Instead, I stacked the documents beneath the cushion of my chair, poured water, and listened for the sound of my son's key, an emergency key I'd given him at 4 p.m., one spring afternoon because I believed emergencies were storms and fires, not the slow corrosion of trust. He arrived at 11:20 a.m., Christmas sweater wrinkled, eyes rimmed with the sleepless shine of a gambler's dawn. "Good," he said, walking in like our house had no doors. "We need to fix this. Ashley's talking lawyers, charges, divorce, maybe she should," I replied, and watched the word land. "Mom, you don't understand. If this goes public, I lose my job, my license, everything." He said license with the importance of a man who believes paper is character. "You should have thought of that before you forged signatures. It's not fraud," he snapped, then softened so fast I almost believed him. "It's family. You're my mother." "Family doesn't take out life insurance policies on each other," I said, and when his face drained, I knew he hadn't expected me to find that nerve. "You know about that, I know about all of it," I said. "The second mortgage, the cards, the online purchases made with my debit card at 2:11 a.m. on 3 separate nights. That's identity theft. Kevin." He sat like the air had thickened. "You're making a mistake." "Mom, a big mistake. The mistake was trusting you," I answered, and I hated how clean it felt to say. He stood, fists knotted, voice low. I'm your only family. When you're old and sick and need someone at 3 a.m., Ashley and I are all you have. He meant it to frighten me. And for a breath, it did. Then I pulled my phone from my sweater pocket and held the screen toward him. This is the elder care attorney Dorothy recommended, I said. I've been reading about financial exploitation and sons who forge their mothers' names. His certainty faltered. Pride flickering like a candle a draft won't let stay lit. You wouldn't. I called the bank this morning. I continued. They walked me through charges I never made. I filed a fraud alert at 9:05 a.m. You might want to call your company about those bonuses. His phone buzzed, and I watched color drain in a fresh pattern. Locks changed. Don't come home, he read. And when I asked, Ashley, he only nodded, the word divorce forming without breath. For a moment, his face collapsed into the boy who brought me dandelions and called them flowers, and then it hardened into a mask. This is your fault, he said. If you hadn't opened your mouth, none of this... Kevin, I cut in. If I hadn't opened my mouth, I might not be alive. He turned for the door, then pivoted back with a look that chilled even the bulbs on my tree. You think you've won? He asked softly. You've just guaranteed you'll die alone. The front door clicked shut at 11:42 a.m., and the house exhaled. I stood still. One hand on the chair cushion where the documents lay like loaded proof. When my phone rang again, Mrs. Sullivan, a calm voice said, "This is Detective Morrison with the Connecticut State Police Financial Crimes Unit. We need to talk." I sat down hard, the detective's voice humming through the phone like a low storm. "Mrs. Sullivan," he said, "we believe your son Kevin is part of a larger financial fraud network targeting elderly clients. You're not the only victim." My throat tightened. "Not the only one, no, yes, ma'am. We've been investigating him for 3 months. It started with a woman named Eleanor Hayes." "Does that name mean anything to you, Dorothy Hayes?" I said, the correction automatic. "Eleanor's her older sister." "Then you know she's 81. Kevin was her financial advisor before he moved into accounting. He forged her signature on investment documents, stole over $200,000. I gripped the phone tighter, staring at my Christmas tree. Its lights blinked like they were trying to apologize. When Detectives Morrison and Walsh arrived at 12:05 p.m., the smell of cinnamon still lingered, a cruel ghost of morning. I handed them Ashley's envelope, the life insurance policy on top. Morrison flipped through each page with quiet precision. "How long has this been going on?" "2 years that I know of," I said. Walsh nodded grimly. "He's been targeting widows living alone. It fits the pattern." I swallowed, the word pattern scraping something inside me. "You think he'd hurt someone?" Morrison looked up, eyes soft but direct. "Mrs. Sullivan, we've seen cases where financial abuse escalates when the perpetrator feels trapped. Desperate people do desperate things." I told them about his visit that morning, the anger, the threats, his insistence that I owed him. When I reached the part about the life insurance policy, Morrison leaned forward. "That's what made us take a closer look at your case. Those policies are often precursors to violence. For the first time that day." My hands began to shake. He placed a card on the coffee table. "We'll keep you safe, but we need your cooperation. Document everything, every forged signature, every transaction. You're not alone in this." They left just after 1 p.m., the house quieter than it had ever been. I sat in my recliner, staring at the tree, the gifts beneath it now small and meaningless. The phone buzzed again. "Ashley. Maggie," she said, her voice trembling. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know how deep it went. Can we talk?" I hesitated, the detective's warning echoing in my mind. But before I could answer, There was a sharp knock at the door, 3 deliberate strikes that made my heart stop. I looked through the peephole. Kevin. He stood on the porch, face gaunt, eyes wild. "Mom," he called, voice muffled through the wood. "We need to talk." My hand hovered over the deadbolt. "I think we've said enough," I replied. "The police were here." "Weren't they?" he said, his tone flattening into something hollow. I stayed silent. "I saw their car leaving." "You have no idea what you've done." "Mom, no idea what you've started." My fingers tightened on the chain. "I didn't start anything." "You did?" He pressed closer, his shadow stretching across the frosted glass. "You think this is about you?" His laugh cracked. "It's not. I owe money." "Mom." Real money. To people who don't wait politely for checks to clear, I felt my stomach drop. What kind of people? The kind who want $80,000 by next week. He exhaled hard. "You can still fix this. Just one more payment." "No," I whispered. "Not another cent." His voice darkened. "It'll be your problem when they come looking for their money. They know where you live." I said nothing. He stepped back, his silhouette breaking apart in the snowlight. "Fine," he muttered. "Whatever happens next, you chose it." When his car finally pulled away at 1:42 p.m., I called Detective Morrison immediately. "He was just here," I said, breath shaking. He mentioned gambling debts. 80,000. The detective cursed under his breath. "That explains a lot. Miss Sullivan, pack a bag. We're moving you to a safe location tonight. You think he'd hurt me, Mrs. Sullivan," he said gently. "Your son's in free fall. We can't take chances." By 3:15 p.m., I was in a small hotel room across town, a floral bedspread, curtains half drawn. Detective Walsh sitting by the window watching the parking lot. The local news murmured from the television. Kevin's mugshot filled the screen, hair disheveled, eyes red-rimmed. Local man arrested in elder fraud scheme. The anchor announced. Walsh gave a low whistle. Caught at an underground poker game trying to bet with stolen money. Didn't even make it 12 hours. I thought I'd feel relief. Instead, all I felt was the heavy, aching quiet that follows grief. Then the reporter said something that pulled me back to the screen. Authorities believe the suspect was part of a wider operation involving organized elder fraud in the tri-state area. Walsh turned up the volume, brow furrowed. "Miss Sullivan," he said slowly, "there's something else you need to know. Kevin wasn't working alone." I stared at Detective Walsh, not understanding. "What do you mean, not alone?" He sighed, turning down the television. "We found evidence linking multiple accounts to a second party, offshore transfers, digital signatures, coordination between Kevin and someone else." "Ashley," I whispered before he could finish. He nodded. "Not at first. But we think she figured out what he was doing months ago, and instead of reporting it, she helped him expand it." The room felt smaller suddenly, the floral wallpaper tightening around me. "That can't be right," I said. "She's the one who brought me the documents. She exposed him." "Think about it," Detective Morrison said from the doorway. He'd returned carrying a laptop and a folder of printouts. "How did she know exactly where to look, which files to take, which desk drawer to open?" He set the folder on the bedspread, flipping it open to reveal text messages, screenshots between Ashley and Kevin. The first message was hers. "We need an exit strategy. Your mother's getting suspicious." Kevin's reply, "Don't worry. I can handle my mother." I sank onto the edge of the bed as the words blurred. There were dozens more messages, stretching over months, Ashley asking which clients had the largest retirement accounts, Kevin boasting about how much he'd siphoned that week. Morrison's voice softened. "Mrs. Sullivan?" Ashley filed for divorce yesterday, not out of outrage, but strategy. She knew we were closing in. She's trying to protect her assets. For a long moment, all I could hear was the faint hum of the heater. So what happens now? We need your help, Walsh said. Ashley doesn't know we have proof yet. If you meet her, she might talk freely. We can wire you, record everything. I looked at him, startled. You want me to wear a wire? You'd be safe, Morrison said quickly. We'd be nearby the entire time. But she trusts you. You're the only one who can get her to talk. I thought about Ashley's cold smile that morning, the precision of her cruelty, and the way she'd called me Margaret only when she wanted to hurt me. I thought of how many times I'd watched her pretend to care. When I asked, Morrison exchanged a glance with Walsh. Tomorrow afternoon, she texted you. Right, use that. Let her think you're ready to reconcile. The next day at 2:30 p.m., I walked into a coffee shop downtown wearing a small recording device under my blouse, the microphone warm against my skin. Ashley was already there, perfectly composed as if scandal hadn't touched her. Maggie, she said brightly, standing to hug me. I'm so glad you came. Of course, dear, I said, forcing warmth. Family is family. Right. For the briefest second, her smile flickered. We ordered coffee. She spoke first. With Kevin in jail, I'm going to need your help more than ever. The mortgage, the bills, the children's expenses. I can't do this alone. I stirred my cup slowly. What exactly are you proposing? I think we should make our arrangement official, she said. Legal. You could sign over power of attorney to me. I'll handle your finances properly this time. I sipped my coffee, watching the way her fingers tightened on her cup. That's very thoughtful of you. Ashley, but tell me why now, because you need someone you can trust, she said smoothly. Kevin kept you in the dark about everything. I can help you. I smiled faintly, like you helped with the offshore accounts. The porcelain clinked as her hand jerked. I don't know what you're talking about. The Cayman Islands account, I said quietly, with $247,000 transferred from Mrs. Hayes, Mrs. Patterson, and others. Her eyes widened, color draining from her cheeks. Did you really think the police wouldn't find it? She looked around wildly. Maggie, you don't understand. Kevin forced me. Her voice broke, desperation curling around her words. He said if I didn't help him, he'd ruin me. I kept my voice steady. So you stole from his victims instead, lied to me for 2 years. Tears pooled but didn't fall. It wasn't supposed to go this far, she said. It was temporary until he got back on his feet. I leaned forward. And what was the plan for me? Ashley, the life insurance policy, the forged nursing home applications listing me as incompetent. Her breath hitched audibly. That was Kevin's idea. Was it also his idea to make yourself my responsible party for financial decisions? Her silence was louder than any confession. How long have you been working with the police? She whispered finally. Since yesterday, I said. They know everything. She stood suddenly, chair scraping, eyes sharp and hateful. You sanctimonious old witch, she hissed. You think you're innocent? You enabled all of this. You paid for everything, made it easy for him. You're right, I said softly. I enabled it by trusting family. My mistake was believing love couldn't lie. Ashley's face twisted. You were never family. Maggie. You were just a bank account with legs. She stormed out, and within moments, Detective Morrison appeared at my table. We got it all, he said. Every word. She's finished. But before relief could settle, his phone rang. His face turned grave. Mrs. Sullivan, we have a problem. Kevin just made bail. My stomach dropped. How someone posted his bond. Someone with very deep pockets. He paused. We traced the payment. It came from Vincent Castellano. Ever heard of him? I shook my head. He runs the largest illegal gambling ring in the tri-state area. Before I could speak, my phone buzzed. A text. We need to talk, Kevin. Morrison leaned over my shoulder. Do not respond. But then another came. Parking garage behind your hotel. Come alone or Ashley dies. Attached was a photo of her bound, terrified. Morrison swore. It's a setup, he said. But we'll get her. I stared at the image, my pulse pounding. She may be guilty, I said quietly, but she's still human. I stood, and if Kevin's desperate enough, we're already out of time. The parking garage loomed like a concrete throat swallowing daylight, its breath cold and metallic as I stepped inside at 5:10 p.m. The echo of my footsteps felt too loud, my heartbeat too fragile. Detective Morrison and his team were hidden somewhere behind the shadows. But to Kevin, I was alone, the aging mother he believed still soft enough to forgive. He emerged from behind a pillar, shoulders slumped, eyes hollow. The gun in his hand glinted weakly under the flickering overhead light. "Where's Ashley?" I asked, my voice steady though my palms were trembling. "Somewhere safe," he said flatly. "For now." "Kevin," I said gently, "put the gun down. Please, you're scaring me." He gave a humorless laugh. "Good. Maybe you'll finally take me seriously. You ruined my life." "Mom." "No," I whispered. "You ruined it yourself." He took a step closer, the gun lowering a fraction. "You could fix this. Just call the police, tell them you lied, say I never stole anything, that it was all a misunderstanding." "I can't," I said. "Too many people know the truth." His eyes flashed. "Then Ashley dies." My heart thudded painfully, but I didn't move. "No, she doesn't." I pulled out my phone and turned the screen toward him, because Ashley was never kidnapped. His expression faltered, confusion breaking through the rage. "That photo you sent," I said softly. "It's from a college play she starred in. The police verified it hours ago. There is no warehouse. Kevin, there's just you, alone, threatening your mother in a parking garage." He blinked, the gun wavering. "You're lying." "No, sweetheart," I said, voice trembling on the word I hadn't called him in years. "You are." Something in him cracked. He looked suddenly small, lost. It was never real. Was it no, Kevin? I said, stepping closer. "It wasn't. I wanted it all to stop. I haven't slept in days." The gun slipped from his hand, clattering against the floor like a final confession. "I ruined everything, didn't I?" he whispered. I nodded, tears burning my eyes. "But you can stop running now." That's when the detectives swept in, quiet, efficient, hands firm, but not cruel. Kevin didn't resist. He looked at me once, the boy I'd raised flickering through the man who'd broken us. As they led him away, I whispered, "I hope you find the person you were meant to be, not the one you became." 6 months later, spring sunlight spilled through the courthouse windows like forgiveness. I sat in the gallery beside Mrs. Hayes, Mrs. Patterson, and 3 other women whose lives Kevin had scarred. Kevin stood at the defendant's table, thinner, quieter, eyes rimmed with something that looked like regret. The judge read the charges: elder, fraud, forgery, conspiracy, 7 years in federal prison. Ashley, pale and expressionless, received 4. Justice rarely feels triumphant, but it felt necessary. When the judge asked if I wanted to speak, I stood. "Your Honor," I said, "Kevin Sullivan is my son. I raised him, loved him, trusted him. His crimes didn't just steal my money, they stole my sense of safety and the meaning of family. But I want the court to know that Kevin's actions don't define all of us." I gestured to the women beside me. Mrs. Hayes has started a support group for victims. Mrs. Patterson volunteers at Senior Legal Aid. We've turned our pain into purpose. That's what healing looks like. Kevin turned slightly. meeting my gaze for the first time since the arrest. In his eyes, I saw both shame and the faintest flicker of the child he'd been the one who used to leave dandelions on my kitchen table. Your Honor, I continued, justice isn't about vengeance. It's about protection. I support this sentence, not because I hate my son, but because I hope it stops another family from breaking like ours. After court, I walked into the pale April sunlight, the air warmer than it had been in years. My phone buzzed. Grandma, can I come visit you this weekend? I miss you. Emma. My heart softened. Of course, sweetheart, I typed back. I'll make your favorite cookies. That evening, I sat on my porch, my own porch, mortgage-free, quiet except for the wind chime I'd bought decades ago when love still felt unshakable. A letter from Dorothy Hayes lay in my lap. She wrote about the elder fraud prevention program we were launching together, funded by the recovered money from Kevin and Ashley's accounts. We're going to make sure our suffering counts for something. She'd written. I smiled through tears. A year ago, I thought family meant accepting whatever treatment they gave you, paying any cost, bearing every insult, and calling it love. Now I knew better. Real family isn't built on blood or obligation. It's built on respect, honesty, and care freely given. Kevin had taken my trust, but he'd left me something greater, the strength to say no, and the wisdom to choose peace over loyalty to pain. My phone buzzed again. Emma's voice this time, warm and bright. Grandma, I love you. I smiled at the setting sun, the air sweet with spring. I love you too, sweetheart, more than you'll ever know. For the first time in years, I felt completely free. If this story touched you, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Your story matters.